Let's review our layout in Design View. We have our header here at the top, and then we have our nav bar that is floated to the right. Under the CSS panel, we can take a look at the nav selector, show set, and we can see the properties. Our new section tag main copy selector element is floated to the left, and then our new section element with the sidebar ID tag is floated to the right, and our footer element is floated to the left. So again, you can review the properties in the properties section in the CSS Designer panel. Now we want to actually bring in some images. We want to bring the logo into the header area. So I'm going to go to my files and look in the images folder and find the logo for the Getty Foundation, and that will be called the Getty Logo PNG. And I'm going to drag that image right into the header element. And using the Properties panel, we can define the Getty Foundation in the alt text. So here's my Properties panel, and I can select the image and type in under alt text the Getty Foundation. I can go back and delete this content for new header tag placeholder text, and then I can delete the placeholder text for the nav element and replace it with new text. So I'm going to type in about the Getty return. So I've gone ahead and typed in the new content for the nav bar. Under CSS Designer, in the Properties section, you can go ahead and add a top margin of 50 pixels to give some margin space above the nav bar. Now we want to click to select the sidebar selector in the CSS Designer panel. Uncheck the Show Set option, and let's go to the background properties. And here we're going to go to the Browse To folder and select the Parchment PNG. Select that as the background image, and then we want to choose the No Repeat, so background No Repeat option. In our live view, we can get a better image. In live view, I can see my parchment image is cut off on the bottom, and I also went back and fixed under the sidebar ID selector, I had the minimum width set at 200 pixels rather than the minimum height. So make sure you have the minimum height set at 200 so that we can see most of this parchment image. Now, as we can see, the bottom is cut off still, so we want to fix that. And we want to fix that by going, make sure you're in live view. Go to the background position menu. So in background, the first position we want to select center, and then the second one we want to select bottom. And then we can define the padding values for sidebar. By adding a padding of 10 pixels to the top, and then 30 on all the other sides. Now we want to subtract 60 from the width of the sidebar selector since we increased the padding. So we're going to go back up to the width and change it from 350 to 290. I'm going to switch to live view so now you can see the entire image. Again, if you're in design view, you won't be able to see the bottom of that parchment, so you want to make sure to check in live view so you can see how it will actually display. So I'm going to select this section sidebar element, and in the CSS Designer panel, make sure that the main copy selector is selected and go to the background options, and then click the background color. We're going to use the eyedropper to select a medium yellow color in the parchment background, and then press return. And now you see that color is selected for the background color. I'm going to go back to my CSS Designer panel, go to Layout for Main Copy, and again I'm going to change that minimum width to minimum height of 200. And now you can see that background color for the main copy selector of this section element. Now we want to define properties for the body tag. So open the CSS Designer again and turn off the current mode. So we go to All, click the CSS file, and then we're going to click on the Add Selector button and type in body. In the Properties section, under Layout, type in 0. We're going to set the shorthand field for the margin property. And we're going to type in 0. Make sure you hit Enter. And then turn on the lock icon for the padding. And we're just going to enter 0 pixels all around. Oops, that's the wrong. I'm in position. So in padding, I'm going to lock that. Type in 0. Select pixels and enter. Now we can look at the code in the CSS file. We can look at the, let's go back to CSS Designer. So we're going to look at that body code. So here's the margin, and the padding should be 0 all around. And with body still selected, I'm going to go back to our selectors section in the panel and define the background properties. So go to background, and for images, we're going to select the floor JPEG image, and that's going to select that background image. And then for the background size, we can select cover to cover that image over the background. And for background attachment, select fixed. And that's going to keep this background image fixed with other elements scrolling over it. Now switch over to text in properties and select the font family starting with Gotham. It goes all the way down to sans serif. So remember, the browser will, if Gotham font is not available, it will go down the list until it finds an available font. For the font size, select 14 pixels. A font weight of 300. Remember, typical font weight is about 400, so we're going to go for a little bit thinner style. And then the line height, which is the leading, we're going to select 22 pixels. switch over to the design view, and then we can look at back to the live view. Before we do that though, go ahead and look at your source code. If at any time anything looks like it's wrong or placed in the wrong place, you can check your code. So make sure that after the body tag, you've got the header and then you've got the nav inside the header with your nav content. Then the closing nav tag, we've got the image link inside of the header. Then the header closing tag, our div ID, and then the section ID selector, main copy, and sidebar nested inside. Then the closing div tag, and then the footer with the content, which the placeholder content, which we haven't fixed that yet, and then the closing body tag. So those are our elements, and this concludes stage 1, and we'll go on to stage 2.